Welcome to the Bullish Drive Podcast, where faith meets mental performance. Let this be your guide on a journey of growth and resilience. Each week, we dive into conversations with top performers, exploring the mindset and faith that fuel their successes. This is the Bullish Drive Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back. This is, like the first of two, finale episodes of season 3 of the Bullish Drive Podcast. I'm James, I'm your host, and I'm super thankful for you guys joining us today. As you guys know, this podcast has always been the vision of just sharing wisdom. And the Bible talks about how seeking wisdom really sets up the foundation for everything else that happens. So when it comes to wisdom, I think about, there's a lot of verses actually. If you read through Proverbs is a great place just to start when it comes to finding wisdom. And even if you're not Christian, the book of Proverbs provides so many life lessons and foundations. You could read a million wisdom books from motivational speakers, successful entrepreneurs, businessmen. And what I have found is that everything that they're talking about within their books has been written down before in the book of Proverbs. And something I always think about as another verse from the Bible is James. And not because my name's James, but because this book, it's short and sweet, but it has a really, really cool verse from it. It says, those who lack wisdom turn to God. And you see, God has overwhelmingly amount of wisdom that he is willing to give to us. We just have to ask. And that's the same way when we're interacting with just people around us. Everybody has wisdom. And the thing is, why reinvent the wheel when there are people around us doing things that we want to do, that we want to overcome, and all we have to do is ask? In my own experience, 99.9% of the time, anytime I've ever asked for wisdom, people are willing to give it. If they're asking for money, that's fine. That's their prerogative. That's their motive. That's fine. Let them ask for money. But there are a bunch of other people that are willing to just mentor and give people advice. Some of my greatest mentors were just willing to give advice, and you'll find them. So go out and ask. Don't be afraid to ask. The worst thing that can happen is no. So with wisdom, that's one reason why I started this podcast. For those who may be a little hesitant to ask for wisdom, I went and I sought out people willing to give wisdom, and I had them here on the show to share that wisdom with you. And it's been one of the greatest callings that God has ever placed on my life. And what a blessing it's been for me to just build those connections and those relationships and share those conversations with everybody. So thank you guys who have joined to build their wisdom, their foundations, their mental skills toolbox. Part of wisdom is that experience, and a testimony is incredibly powerful. And throughout the Bible, there's such a big weight about just sharing your testimony. And today I have a guest on here, and she shares her testimony, and it's incredibly powerful. It's very real. It's very authentic, and maybe it will resonate with you. But bottom line, testimony is like medicine for other people, especially for those who may not have found Christ yet or are going through a hard time as well. There's somebody out there that is experiencing the same thing you're experiencing. I'm really excited to have on the Bullish Drive Podcast, Genavieve Linkowski. Welcome to the show. You may have seen her on the internet and YouTube or on American Idol, or have heard her story. But today we have Genevieve Linkowski on the podcast. Genevieve, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you having me on here. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is gonna be so good. And so for those who don't know, and I don't know if there's anybody out there that don't know, but could you just introduce yourself and just a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper there.
Yeah, so my name is Genevieve Linkowski. As he said, I'm 25 years old. I'm from Goodrich, Michigan. I started singing when I was 14, but I was always musical as a child. My siblings and I, we would always sing together and stuff like that. But I didn't take singing seriously until I turned 14. And then after that, it's just been a journey of falling in love with singing, and then it became idolatry, and then God to take it away. And so American Idol, and then I didn't want to do singing anymore. And then God reintroduced me to it. So much story behind the scenes, but yeah, my journey with singing has been very up and down. In the middle of all that, I lost a sister in 2019. So that was a massive hiccup in the road. She passed away in a car accident. I don't know if you want to dive further into that later on, but yeah, fun fact, I'm the oldest of 11 kids, so that is a great time. But yeah, I guess those are the big hitter things. American Idol 2018 and 2020.
Yeah.
Idol. And then yeah, I would say those are the big hitter things.
Those are the big hitter things amongst
Yeah.
other big hitting things that
Yeah.
that you cover. For sure. So I love, so 14 years old. Now
Yeah.
that seems young to be like, this is what I want to do. This is the seriousness. What was the conversation, or did you have support from your family of moving into this? Like, how did you make that decision that 14, this is what I want to do?
So funny enough, okay, I grew up in a very legalistic church. So
Okay.
my parents were very lost when they met each other. They met at a bar and they were just like partying it up and living the American, party life. And when they ended up getting saved, which is when they had me, they got saved into this like very legalistic church, and then they went from one to like another even more legalistic church. So my type of singing that I do is considered sensual in those circles, and like wrong. Drums not allowed, guitar not allowed, like that kind of stuff. Even if you're singing worship music, like I had somebody call me crying one day because they saw that I was singing Chris Tomlin with a piano on YouTube, and it was like, wow. So that's how intense this legalism was. And so I was playing from my youth. I was playing the piano, I was playing the harp, the violin, all classical, because that was like the only godly music outside of like sacred music. It's so weird. So yeah, even the thought of singing the way that I do was wrong. If I ever would sing, I would sing opera style, because that was, again, the only godly like option for singing. So if I were to say Amazing Grace, like I'm scooping my voice, that's a no. It has to be like Amazing Grace. It has to sound like robotic, because you don't want to take any attention away from the words and all this stuff, whatever. So yeah, I grew up in a very, like, an upbringing that was just, it was looked down upon to sing the way that I do or sing the songs that I do. So eventually the Lord had just like kind of revealed to my parents, and I started asking my parents questions. Hey mom, why is Casting Crowns wrong to listen to? And she said to me, well, that's like putting a bunch of Bible verses on a bikini. And I was like, well, mom, the Bible talks about modesty, and even that is a whole nother discussion. But the Bible doesn't talk about the type of music. Like, I mean, the Bible even talks about raising your hands to him, like lifting hands. That was a no-no. Like, it talks about using the tambourine and instruments, so she was like, well, and this is what I appreciate about my parents so much. She said, I'm not going to force you to do anything. If you feel like you're getting closer to the Lord by listening to this music, then listen to it. And if you feel like it's taking you away, then don't listen to it. And she kind of left it up to me as I was growing up and like becoming more spiritually mature. So I continued to listen to CCM, and I fell in love with it. And then the nail in the coffin was, well, I started to experiment with my voice. Now that I was listening to these like CCM artists, I was like, I wonder if I could sing like that. I never tried. So I started to do it, and I was like, oh dang, like I think I'm good at this. And mind you, I have like 10 plus years of classical music under my belt. So I didn't want that to go to waste, but I was just like, then the movie Frozen came out, and I was 14. Oh no. And I was like so shocked by Idina Menzel's vocals in that song, with the song Let It Go. So embarrassing. But I was on the Let It Go train. I was like, I'm gonna attempt this song. That was like the moment when I sang Let It Go by Frozen. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a singer. Like, this is what I'm doing. I never want to ever stop singing. From that moment on, I would always, like, I dabbled into Celine Dion, Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston. I would put on the hardest songs that I knew, that I learned, and my goal was to sing them to like the best of my ability and do a good job. And so from that moment on, I was always doing karaoke's and like just whatever I could, taking on any challenge regarding singing that I could. So that's like how I knew and how I started singing. There's so much after that, but I'll let you like continue with your questions before I keep going.
No, that is so good. That is so good. Like you set a standard so high. Like when you mentioned some of those singers, it's like, okay, those are some big singing vocals for a 14-year-old to be like going for. And Idina Menzel, that's like nothing to like cough at. Like she's a
True.
Broadway star. She's like, she hits those notes. She was in Wicked. I mean, she was
Yeah,
top notch.
no joke, right?
That's such a wild story. And you know, when you think about worship music, you like some of the original worship music was written by a man who struggled in the morning to connect with God and then was happy with God in the afternoon. Like there's so much
Wow.
emotion behind the Psalms. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
if you want to experience like some whiplash and emotion, like
Right.
read a couple Psalms, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
it can't be legalistic, right?
Right.
Like it has to have your emotional relationship with God, because
Yeah.
if it comes down to just rules and all that stuff, like then it's like Jesus can fulfill the law, right? And like
Right.
to
Right. Yeah.
stick so tight to this stuff just completely
Yeah.
demolishes what the relationship with God is.
Well,
So
right, and that's why I've
all
seen. I
that.
feel like so many people I grew up with have walked away from the faith because the gospel to them was following all these rules that were not in the Bible, and then
Mm,
and now you're missing the truth of the gospel. You're
mm,
missing like the core that Jesus loved us, came to die for us. He did fulfill the law. So in him, we have freedom in him. But that doesn't mean that we have a license to sin. Like there's so
right.
much that goes into that. But I feel like in legalism, those rules are so like they're just put on people and
Mm,
they're taught this is the right way to live, but they don't know why, and they're
yep.
missing the whole truth of the gospel. So it will cause someone to walk away eventually, It's
Right.
sad. I praise God that God kept my family through all of that. But
What I love is that your mom was willing to talk to you about it, and you
yeah,
had like, it talks about faith of a child, and training up a child in the way that they should go, and kids need to have questions about these things.
right, exactly.
And so
Yeah,
as parents raising kids, and you're demonstrate it well, is just like there is so much power in being able to sit in that space of just, why do we do these things,
right,
and
exactly.
why do you do that, mom, why do you
Yeah.
do it, dad, and like,
And my mom, like when she didn't have an answer for me, she told me to go seek the Lord and go
yeah.
be led by the Lord on it. And I love that. They guide me, but they
Mhm,
don't give me all these rules without an explanation and understanding. So
mhm.
I now I am very close with them and I have the utmost respect for them. They're my best friends, they're my mentors. It's created such a beautiful God-honoring, God-centered relationship with my parents. They're more than just my parents.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, just hearing that with 11 kids, it's like, I feel like I should sit down with your parents and get some lessons from them to be able to manage
You
that.
think my testimony is crazy? Oh, you ain't heard nothing, bro. You should. They're
Man,
incredible people. Incredible.
man, I checked out your testimony story on your website, and I did
Yeah.
sit through the entire thing. It's a
Oh,
beautiful
geez.
testimony. So like
Oh,
anyone listening, check it out. It's genevievemusic.com, and
yeah.
just
Yep.
check out that testimony. If you do anything, please
So
just do
cool.
that. So powerful. So I appreciate that. But just, yeah, hearing your dad talk and your mom talk, and just about that experience is just, that hit me so hard.
Yeah.
Hit me so
Yeah.
hard.
Crazy.
So um so you started off with Let It Go.
Yeah.
And you went to all kind of what we'd say secular musicians, but kind of your big drive is worship music, and not just covering worship music in English. You also do it in Spanish,
Yeah.
which I love. So can you tell me about that? Like where does the Spanish side come into everything?
This is so funny. Okay. So rewind to like 2018.
Mhm.
I started talking to a Cuban guy, okay? And
Okay.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna learn Spanish. Like, so I just started to learn, like on my own for fun, on Duolingo. Like, and I learned a
Wow.
lot of Spanish. Even like after me and that guy stopped talking, I kept learning. I was so diligent. So I kind of learned, and then I started watching like Spanish TV, listening to Spanish worship music, and I would like write down the Spanish lyrics, and then I would look up the English translation and then write down the English translation. So it really
Wow.
helped me kind of just like understand, just get a deeper understanding of Spanish.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then like I dropped it. I don't even know when I dropped it, but I did. I just stopped learning Spanish. I had nobody in my life that was speaking Spanish. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna progress if I don't like go to a place where everyone speaks Spanish or whatever. So dropped it. And then once my producer and I started working together and we started, doing this cover thing, we started working with these guys who I'm still releasing music with every month. and they brought up the idea like, hey, can you sing in Spanish? Because, you know, they had another artist that was doing really well doing the same thing. And I was like, actually, I can sing in Spanish, like super random.
Actually,
but yeah, I did learn a lot. And I felt like I was good enough to sing Spanish worship. Like I could speak and sound enough like a native speaker. I don't know. You tell me. Do you speak Spanish?
my wife is Guatemalan, and so
okay.
one way we actually found you is we love a lot of music, but one thing that was really sitting on our hearts for a while is the song Praise. And
okay.
you did Alaba, you know, and it came across our things. I'm like, hey, like, check out this artist. She's singing the song in Spanish, and she listened to it, and like we shared it with her family and my in-laws and all of that stuff.
Cool.
And it's like, man, and she's like, is she Spanish? I'm like, I mean, you tell me. I mean, it does sound good. She's like, yeah, it sounds great.
Funny, because I kept wondering. I'm like, do I just sound like a basic white girl trying to sing Spanish? Well, and you know what's so funny? I'm not Hispanic at all. I'm actually Middle Eastern. So
okay.
I can like read Arabic. I speak some Chaldean. My mom is from Baghdad.
Wow,
so like,
that's
Spanish
wild.
is like the most random thing ever. But yeah, they brought it up and they were just like, it's just an opportunity to reach a whole new audience and we can try it. It's something new, you know. So we did 2 of them, and then I guess we'll circle back later on with our new covers and see like if that's something worth revisiting or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of where that came from. Super random, but I'm so grateful to have had that Spanish under my belt so I can, you know, release some songs that I don't think they've ever been released in Spanish before yet.
No.
So they're the biggest worship songs. So I thought that was a super cool opportunity.
That was a great opportunity. You know, and you know, God obviously planted that seed for a reason, because that's how we ran into, you know.
So cool, dude. I love it.
I love that. I love the stories. So you said you just kind of pulled it out, right? They asked you. I feel like if I wasn't speaking in another language, I'd be like, I kind of do, you know, but you're just like, yes, I can do that. You know, where does that confidence come from? Like, how were you like, I can just do this?
It came from like, oh gosh, I had learned so much, and I didn't only learn it, but I also tried like speaking it. So every time I would do an exercise, I would try and speak it just like, you know, the person that was reciting it to me on the computer or whatever. And I am pretty good with like, oh, I don't want to say this. I want to say I'm good with accents, but I'm very good with mimicking. And that's actually how I started singing too, is I would mimic a singer and like try to sound like her. And I was like, oh dang, I'm actually kind of good at this. Sorry if my phone is like going off. There, do not disturb. Okay. But yeah, so I just had spoken it enough, and I've been told, like I took a trip to the Dominican like 2023 or something, and they were all like, oh, your Spanish is so good. And I was like, thank you so much. So I had gotten validation from like, and I do have some Hispanic friends that told me. So I felt confident. I was like it's not hard, especially me knowing Arabic and me knowing Chaldean. Those languages are so much harder, and I'm not fluent in them by any means, but I can do like the pronunciations, the really hard letters. I don't really have a problem with. So Spanish is like nothing compared to those. So I was like, oh yeah, I got this. It's fine.
Would you ever do a song in Chaldean or?
I would actually. Yeah, I would. I think like my team would be a little bit like they'd be a little hesitant just because we're all putting our effort in, and I'm not paying up front. We're all splitting percentages. So everything we do, we want to succeed. And if they think that like this isn't going to do well across like Spotify, then like they'll probably be like, yeah, no. But I would even do it as an independent thing on my own. I think once in my life, I've thought about that for a long time. It would be really cool to do like a worship song in Arabic. So,
yeah, that would be wild. I mean, there's recordings of what was it? Passion of the Christ, you know, where he did the Lord's Prayer in Arabic, like, and that just went viral on TikTok. Like, I think there's a niche for it.
There's room for it for sure. Yeah. No, I definitely want to do that one day.
So you talk about your team. And just that sounds like super professional and super like, you know, in there. So with the music world and your just how the gospel and the faith moves through you. What is that like? Because I sit down with a handful of, musicians moving through the professional world, and I get different stories. So what is kind of your experience moving through the professional music world like that?
Yeah, so what I love about what I'm doing right now is that I'm not signed to anybody. I'm independent, and I would say my team, but my core team is literally just me and my producer. We are nice. We work very well together. We kind of have the same drive and the same mindset when it comes to all this stuff. And then he kind of acts as a manager in some sort of way to get me hooked up with this collaboration with this. I just released a song with these guys called One Common, and they're brothers, and they do worship, and we kind of have the same sort of following. So it was so beneficial to both of us to just do a song together. My producer put all that together. He's negotiating with Maverick City Music, which I'm working with right now, doing collaborations with them. So yeah, he and I are just a really good team. We work very well together. I would say what I've had to learn working with him, which he is so fantastic and talented, wow, so good. I believe that God totally sent him to me, because if he didn't push me to kind of get my wheels turning in singing again, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't be doing music right now. So grateful for Zach, that's his name. But navigating my faith through that, okay, I have convictions. And what I've learned recently is that I can't just say yes to everything, and I can't just assume that everyone knows better than me and I never get to put my foot down. And so one experience that I had recently was I was asked to sing a song that I had a conviction against singing. And it was a worship song, and I listened to this song, and to me and my conviction, it did not align biblically. And my producer was on a different hand, he didn't agree with me. So I had to kind of just step up and be I'm not going to sing this song. I believe that God will not bless this if I compromise what I believe. And when I read the Bible, this is what it says. This is the truth of the gospel. But this song is not sharing that in its entirety, and it's kind of misleading. So I, as a Christian, knowing what I know about the truth of the gospel, cannot sing a song like this where I believe that they're not sharing the whole gospel. It's a misleading gospel. So, respect for my producer. He did not force me to do it. And we ended up just kind of asking to swap for a different song, and those people said yes, and I was oh, thank God. I didn't have to create a conflict. Thank God.
Yeah.
But yeah, things like that, it's just I always say, I'm the second this becomes a business over a ministry, I don't want it. If this ever stops becoming about Jesus, it's gonna burn to the ground, and so will I. Because I'm a child of God, and my calling is to live for the Lord and share the gospel. And if I care more about my career to compromise with a song that I don't believe is giving the gospel, that's wrong. And one compromise is going to lead to many more compromises, and the compromises will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I know full well, I've seen it before my own eyes, what happens to people that kind of just let the industry sweep them away. So I see that, and I'm I have to stay grounded in the word. I have to stay grounded in my relationship with God. And you know what? If God calls me one day to walk away from all this music stuff and do something else, so be it. Because I live for God, not my singing. And my identity is in Christ, not in my singing. So, and these are things that don't just come naturally to me. I have to fight the urge to find my identity in my singing. Everyone knows me as a singer, and then the second I lose my voice or get sick or have vocal problems, I start to freak out, and I'm hold up, this doesn't change my salvation status before God.
Right.
I'm still adopted into his family. I still can serve God if I'm not singing. My identity is in Christ. That, at the end of the day, is what keeps me grounded, and it's something that I have to revisit often, because if I start to get lazy and start to compromise little compromises here and there, I just know that that's a slippery slope, and I cannot afford to fall down that slippery slope. So that's kind of I guess a roundabout way that I would say navigating my faith through my profession, because bro, I kid you not. There are so many people in the Christian worship music industry that do not live for the Lord. And I just, God forbid, I become somebody that makes God look bad by singing for the Lord, but then living a different way, you know? So yeah, that's what I would say. At the end of the day, I have to put my foot down about my convictions. I have to stay grounded in the Word, stay grounded in prayer, in my relationship with God. My parents are such good people to keep me grounded. My boyfriend, amazing. Like, just, I believe that God has given me all the resources to go through this career in a way that honors and glorifies and pleases Him. So that's my goal, is never to compromise. Even if I'm working with the big dogs and working with the most talented producer ever, like, they're not God, and I answer to God at the end of the day. So that's what I would say.
Man, that's so good. We're good. We can wrap it up. No. That was golden. And something, now you brought this up a couple times, you know, saying returning to music. And if you're open to it, I want to kind of dive into that. Why did you step away? And like, thank you, Zach, you know, shout out to Zach for, you know, bringing you back in. But
right.
So what took you out? What brought you back in? What was that?
Yeah, so I would say, I'm going to back it up a little bit. When I fell in love with singing, I did not have a heart for worship. And I would like to think that I did, and I believe I was saved at the time, but I was so infatuated with the idea of being on a stage and just rocking a crowd. And honestly, I will say, looking back, I wanted glory. I did. I wanted to be famous. I grew up in like all the churches that I were in. I was an outcast. The kids didn't like me. I was the weird homeschooled kid, like, you know. And so when I found that I had this gift, I was like, oh, I'm gonna show you, like, you know what I mean? and there was not like a godly motivation behind it, although I did like love the Lord, so I wanted to believe that my heart was true and pure. But you know, it wasn't, and I wrestled with that for a long time, I would say. I even talked to my dad, and I was like, you know, what would you think about me singing secular music? I could bring God into the secular world, you know? And it's crazy. And not that you know, there are artists out there who can't do that, but I don't believe that was my calling at all. I believe it takes a very strong believer to be in the secular world and take God to the secular world. And ultimately we are called to do that. But the music industry is just a different ball game. And like, you're so easily influenced, and it's high pressure. It's like, you know, so for me, gosh, looking back, I'm like, thank you, God, for not giving me the desire of my heart at the time. So American Idol was actually something that helped shift my desire. The first time I was on American Idol, I was eating it all up. I was so like, oh my gosh, I'm on TV. Oh my gosh, I'm with celebrities. Oh my gosh. Like, and I was freaking out. And it was a fleshly satisfaction. It just was. I know it. I know my heart. You know, so that first run, I was just like on cloud nine. It was my dream, everything I imagined. Then a year later, my sister passed away in a car accident. And she was like, gosh, I'm the oldest of 11. She was the one right under me. We all came in pairs. Girl, girl, boy, boy, girl, girl, boy, boy, girl, girl, boy. Yeah. And like, so all of us like had a buddy, super fun. So Corinne was like my best friend. She sang as well. She played the piano for me. We had a whole YouTube channel together before I had my own. We sang worship songs with the piano, and that, like, we just had a great time. So actually going on American Idol and singing by myself was a little bit strange, because I was just so used to singing with her. So when she passed, that was, honestly, I feel like I was at a good place with the Lord when she passed. I never felt the inclination to be angry with God or to shove my fist in his face or get upset. I knew, I was like, the Lord is sovereign over this. And even if he didn't do it, he allowed it. Like, he allowed her to go home, you know? So who am I to get upset with God? And yeah, like, I had just been growing in my faith during that time. And that time is when the things of the world grew strangely dim. Fame did not appeal to me anymore. Being on TV did not appeal to me anymore. Like, I just wanted to live for the eternal kingdom. God shifted my heart so much during that time. And like, obviously I missed her and I grieved, but I just think, you know, I look back and I'm like, that was hard, but I've gone through harder things, and those harder things were when I fell into sin and I walked away from God. But during my sister's passing, I was so close with God, and I was so secure in the Lord. I knew that God had done it for a reason, and that God was going to take care of us. Like, as long as I stick close to Jesus and cling to him, God was going to take care of me. And I just knew that. So during that time, I was like, all right, I just want to press into the Lord, and I don't want to sing. Especially because she was like my partner in music. So I didn't sing for a few months, and I kind of just traveled for a little bit. I just really immersed myself in God. I went around speaking about my testimony losing my sister, which was so great, so beneficial. And then I kind of got back into the music scene little by little. And I was all by myself, and I was just so like confused. I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't working with professionals. I actually was working with my sister that passed away. Her boyfriend that she was dating at the time before her passing, he was having fun kind of producing my music for me. So if you go on YouTube and you hear like the Louis Capaldi covers or like my worship covers that were in that time, he actually produced all those. So it was a season of like kind of just working with his name was also Zach, working with the previous Zach, and it was during COVID actually that we kind of just like hammered the covers, and we actually were killing it. And so I was like, okay, like I'm not lost without my sister. God provided Zach. I know what I'm doing. We're doing covers. During that time also, American Idol wanted me to come back. And so I was like, okay. This time I was not like, oh, American Idol's so glamorous, I'm gonna be famous. Like, no. I was just like, I had the mindset of, I want to share my sister's story. It was cool because Corinne was previously on American Idol with me in the filming process. And so I wanted to kind of just tell everyone about her and possibly be a light for Christ. Although, like, they won't air the times that I talk about God, whatever. So yeah, I went back on. It was a good experience, but I feel like this time around American Idol, God just revealed to me, you're a worshiper. You don't belong in this scene. And I'll never bash American Idol. They were so good to me, like so good to me. They gave me so much airtime that season, and I was so thankful. But, it was just not for me. My heart was now for the Lord. I had a distaste for the things of the world. Like, I did not care about the fame anymore. So and being there really solidified that. Like, I tell you, during Hollywood Week, they kept sending me through to the next round, and every time they gave me a yes, I literally just wanted to cry sad tears because I just wanted to go home. Like, I remember one time, I'll never forget this, I was sitting on a couch in the holding room, and I was about to go on stage, and I had to listen to my song that I was going to sing, because like they don't give you a lot of time to learn it and to go perform it. So I was listening to it over and over again. Well, it was in a voice memo, and I hit play on my AirPods, which sent me to a random song in my music library, which was a worship song. It was called More Than I Deserve by Vertical Worship. And gosh, I was just like, the song started and I was like, I know I should go back and hit play on my song that I'm about to perform, but I have to worship right now. I have to. Like, I'm craving the Lord. I am craving worship. So I just sat there in silence, and I kind of just listened to this song, and I just worshiped for 5 minutes, and it was the best 5 minutes of Hollywood Week, me just sitting on that couch worshiping the Lord. And then I went back to my song, and so that was just a time. I texted my worship team. I was like, I can't wait to be back with you guys. I texted my family, and I was like, I just want to sit and have coffee with you guys around the dining table and talk about God. Like, that's all I want to do right now, And so when I got off the show, was like kind of when I started to be like, okay, I have to, I'm going to do what I want now. I'm going to worship God. And this is where it got really rough. I feel like spiritual attack, honestly, at its finest. I got off the show. Now I did not have my sister's boyfriend working for me. He ended up just kind of moving on with his life, getting a new job, moving away, that kind of thing. So I was all alone, and I had this kind of pressure on me to like do music, but I didn't know what I was doing. I can't play the guitar. I can't write songs. I don't have anybody like with their head on straight in the music industry to guide me. I don't know what I'm doing,
Sure.
So what I did was I led worship for a long time. Like every week I was up on stage leading worship. And then what I also did was I formed a band, which was very hard. But I got these guys together and we ended up just like going out and playing worship nights. And
Oh, that's
that was
awesome.
cool. Like for that season, I would give the gospel, I would share my testimony and my story, and we would sing worship, and it was honestly very good, although it was so much work. And that's kind of like not something you do like in music. The process is you write songs, you get original songs under your belt, those songs get exposure, and then you take a band on tour or whatever. But I was just like, I'm independent, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. All I can do is sing, and I'm supposed to like do music, and I don't even know what that means. Honestly, that was like the hardest thing for me. I was struggling so bad because and this went on for, I would say, from after the show, which was like COVID years, till end of 2022. I was just like, Lord, I don't know what you want me to do with this. Like, you gave me this gift and I'm not using it and I don't know how to use it. So I'm just going to use it in the best way that I know right now. I was struggling so bad. And then Zach shoot me a DM like January of 2023. And he was like, yo, we got to work together. Now, I had known this guy for about 5 years at the time because I played a festival that he was playing at back in 2018, and that's how we met. But we just never worked together. It's hard because you can't really trust anyone in the music industry.
Right.
So Zach like sends me this DM, and I'm just like, I had this underlying feeling. I'm like, I think this is from God. Like, I think God is throwing an opportunity at me right now. And I don't know if it's from God or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the door, even though I'm scared out of my mind. And I'm going to trust the Lord, and I'm going to trust that God will either continue to open this door or shut it as I'm walking through it.
Right.
That's what I prayed for. And so, gosh, like I had barely ever tried to write a song. Writing scares the heck out of me. I'm not good at it. I don't like it. Like, I'm just not. This is the thing. I would go before God and I would be like, God, all these musicians that are out there, they have a passion for what they do. They love it. They love singing. They love playing shows. They love writing songs. They're in their element when they do that. I am not. I feel like the enemy was really suppressing my gift. So first session that Zach and I have, we write this song, and I am obsessed. Like, I was so scared to bring my ideas up to them, Zach and our ghostwriter Josh. I was so nervous, but they took it and we made like such a beautiful song, and I was such a fan of it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is the coolest thing ever. So that was like the starting point of just like, we're grinding. It's been like just over a year, and wow, like the stuff that we've accomplished in the past year is so cool, and I just keep saying it just has to stay for the glory of the Lord, and that's it, you know. So yeah, that's what I would say, how I came back to it, and now I'm fully in it, like full time. I record. That's probably my full time, is like record and film, and then I'm also a vocal coach. I don't really play with the band. Like, we haven't played one show this year, just because like I'm recording so much. So hopefully maybe in the next season, the recording will die down and the live playing will start, or, you know, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So
I love that story. And the theme I kind of heard a little bit through that is just the humility side of it, right? Just really like hearing what God wanted you to do with your gift, you know, and really stripping things away, and living through that. Are you able to talk a little bit more on like if that played a part into it? Because I feel like God always uses seasons for a reason to strip away things that, like you said, we might be idolizing, and rebuilding back in the gifts that we have.
Yeah, gosh. During this time, I was not only struggling with like, I didn't know how to use my gift. I was also struggling a lot with being single. I was like single for so long. I'm like in my mid-20s. I'm like, Lord, why? All my younger siblings are finding their person. Like, why aren't you ever going to give me mine? Like, whatever. So those were my main two like battles that I was going through. And honestly, I look back at that time, and even though it was very, very hard, it was kind of beautiful because I was just forced to cling to the Lord. Like, when God strips things away or like withholds things from us, it's not without reason, you know?
Right.
God is refining us, and the refining process is not comfortable and it's not easy, but it is good. So that's what I was struggling with. And then And then I start working with Zach, okay? Around the same time I work with Zach, I meet this guy, okay? So like, here's both struggles.
Mm-hmm.
They're now being fulfilled, okay? And I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm kind of scared. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. I don't know. This is new, like, whatever. Well, I meet this guy, and like, long story short, this season of my life with this guy was probably like 4 to 5 months. Was the hardest time of my life. It was way harder than losing my sister, because I chose to listen to this guy, ignore my parents, ignore like everything I've learned growing up. I mean, like, there was so much. It was a very like unhealthy relationship. There was so much manipulation involved, and like all that kind of thing. So I'm sitting here like, okay, my career is like, I don't even know what it's doing. It's kind of just starting. I'm becoming a vocal coach, which I'm so scared because I don't know if I'm gonna be good at it. I meet this guy, things don't seem good. And I'm just in this weird like stretching. And like, I guess long story short, that was just a season for like 4 or 5 months. I was just going through it. And then when God like delivered me out of that relationship, I was so like content in Jesus. I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't need anything ever. The Lord is my strength, my salvation, my rock, my refuge. I don't need anything else aside from him. Like, if he wants me to sing, I'll go sing, like whatever. I just turned a whole new leaf. I felt like I could see in color again after that relationship. I was just like, I felt like I had my relationship with God back and better than ever. And it's so weird. Okay, that's when my career started to pop off. Like, out of nowhere, I blew up on social media. Like, people, you bought your followers. I'm like, no, I swear I didn't. Like, the Lord just made me go viral a bunch of times on like every platform. And like everything is just so good. I was just like, wow, Lord, like, I don't understand, but I'm not complaining. So it was a very hard like first half of the year for 2023, and then the relationship ends and I am just like on cloud 9. Everything is flourishing, everything. My relationship with God, my relationship with my family, my career. And then like 2 months later, I meet this other guy, okay? That's like literally, it's like God just handpicked him and handed him to me. And I'm just like, oh my God. So like, I'm just like, Lord, I don't know what you're doing, but I am so blessed right now. Like, I can't even explain my gratitude, my thankfulness. Like, and I just look back and I'm like, God really blessed my obedience. And I'm not saying that everyone's calling is to have such a good season that I'm in right now. I mean, like, you look at Jeremiah the prophet, he was called the weeping prophet. His whole life he didn't see any fruit from his labor. So God has different callings for different people, like different children of his. But like my season right now is just so amazing. Like, I feel like God put a love in my heart for my singing, for what I do. I used to hate it because I didn't know what I was doing with it. But God provided my producer. God gave me all this, like, all these people looking at me on social media. It's just so weird. And you know what's so funny? I used to crave that, but now that I have it, I'm like, it's not really that incredible.
Right.
Like, all I care about is that the Father is pleased with me. So, like, I mean, it's cool. I'm thankful for the audience that God has given me to share him with. Amen. Praise God.
Yeah.
You know, but it's for him. It's not for me.
That's right.
And like, and the guy that I'm with, like, I'm gonna marry him next year. He is just so like faithful to the Lord. So consequentially, he pushes me to the Lord. He advises me in this career. Like, along with my parents, it's like God has just thrown everything together in a way that I couldn't even imagine. It's like I went through so many hard seasons, and it wasn't all for nothing. And even for the believer that goes through hard seasons their entire life, you stick with the Lord, you prioritize God, and your reward is in heaven. All of our rewards are in heaven. Like, eternal life with God, that is eternal fellowship with God. That is our prize. Jesus is our prize. So like, all these earthly things, like anything good that I receive on earth, God is so gracious to me. Like, it's just from the Lord, and I don't live for those things. I don't idolize those things. And those are things that I have to keep in check, right? Like, oh God, help me not to idolize my boyfriend. He's so fantastic and he's a gift from you. You were the one who provided me with him.
Yep.
My career, help me now that I love it. Now that like all my time is being poured into it. Help me not to make this an idol to the point where I'm choosing my career over you. I touched on that earlier. So yeah, I guess, I don't even know. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did answer. It was great. It actually made me think about, just knowing why we're here, like who we are, a child of God, and I was talking to someone and we were just talking about identity and like how, Eve was never given her name until after the sin, right? Before then, she was only called the woman, right? And it wasn't until after that. So it's like Satan was able to attack her because she didn't even have her identity yet, right? And the only other time Satan talked to anybody on earth directly was when he was in the wilderness with Jesus. And the first thing he says is, if you are the Messiah. So he challenges those who don't know what their calling is and what they are. You are at a disadvantage spiritually when you don't find your identity in God. And so just hearing you say like, you were going through the season, God was starving you, right? And when you're starving, you kind of everything starts looking a little better, right? And so that obedience. So yeah, just a little bit of those things just start looking a little nicer. But then, like you said, God is working stuff out. God is bringing it to you. He's just waiting for you to be ready.
Right. Like during that season, I was always going back to the Lord and I was trying my best to surrender, but like my heart was in a different place. And I was just like, I just didn't know what to do. I felt kind of hopeless, but I feel like at the end of the day, it all comes back down to surrender before the Lord, surrender everything before the Lord. If God saves you, you are his, you are not your own.
100%.
So everything that you do is to be surrendered to him. And then he can use all of that and work through you,
Yep.
But during my time with this other guy, I was like, I didn't even know why I felt far from the Lord. I was so brainwashed. Okay. But I was not surrendering it. I could have ran away. I could have done it. And I was not like surrendering that desire before the Lord. But once I did, I was like, oh God, I'm such a dumb sheep. like why would I go and take this? You are so much better. You're so much better. And why wouldn't I believe that you can give me everything? And I have everything in you. So I shouldn't want for anything. I lack nothing when I have Christ. So that is what I would say to the true believer. When God saves you, he then keeps you, praise God. And we are called to be living sacrifices and surrender everything at his feet daily, die to self daily, because God wants to give us true and abundant joy. And if we're not sacrificing before the Lord and surrendering everything before him, and we do it all on our own and we take our own desires, that's not true abundant joy. That's going to lead to death, because we're fleshly, sinful human beings. But if we allow God to do that work through us, he can have his way in us, and that is the most satisfying thing.
Oh man, that's so good. That's so good. Now we'll kind of, I mean, we could talk about this.
I know, forever, all day.
As we close out, I know there's a lot of young Christian-minded musicians who are like, can I even make it in this big business music world type of thing? And you've covered a lot of it, but is there any lasting words of encouragement or things you can say to them to be like, you know what? Yeah, you can do this.
Absolutely. I believe 100% that every child of God has a unique calling placed on their life. And there was a time where I wanted to do something other than singing. I was like obsessed with makeup and I wanted to go do that. But I knew that God had called me to sing. So in the same boat, there might be some people that are called to sing, and there might be some people that want to sing but are not called to sing. And so my advice to all the aspiring singers is to first seek the Lord on the matter.
That's good.
Like, you have to take this before God and surrender it before him, because if God is going to use you in a different way and you're going to be more effective for the kingdom, your heart needs to be submitted before God first. And then, and like I just said, God wants to give you true abundant joy. If you walk in a calling that is not yours, you're going to experience pushback, you're going to experience attack from the enemy, like all these things. So that needs to be surrendered before the Lord. Now, next step, if you are a singer and you believe that God has called you to this, go do it. No matter what it is, go minister with your gift. Don't try to climb to the top. Don't try to get the best connections. That stuff will come when your heart is submitted to the Lord. That stuff just came for me, okay?
Right.
So you, as an aspiring singer for the Lord, just do what that meant for me was leading worship for free every single week and doing free concerts with my band. And it was a lot of work. But you know what? I was reaping eternal rewards that whole time. And I don't do those things to reap eternal rewards. I do those things because I love the Lord and God has placed his calling on my life. And this is how I know to walk in obedience. So you do what you know is walking in obedience. And that is sharing Jesus through your voice. And not only through your voice, but talk about him. Like after every show, I would talk to the people that were there and I would hear from them and I would pray for them and I would share my testimony with them. So it needs to stay a ministry. It needs to stay honoring to the Lord. Your heart needs to stay honored and submitted to the Lord, and those are just things that you keep in check on a daily basis. So that's what I would say. Like, you everyone has to start somewhere, and God will provide if this is the calling that he has placed on your life. He will 100% provide, and maybe you're not going to go as far as me, but maybe that was God's intention, you know? So this is what goes back to what I was saying. Everything at the end of the day needs to be surrendered to the Lord. God, I'm your vessel. You do what you have your way with me.
Yep. So good. Being okay with that calling, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be great.
Can sing to millions, you know?
Right.
But I would say this. People would say, what's your goal in 5 years? And I would say, you know what? Whatever the Lord puts in front of me. It could be singing in stadiums and touring, or it could be singing to little children in a third world country and being a missionary. It could be either or anywhere in between.
Yeah.
And I just need to stay submitted to God and what he has for me. Yeah.
It's good. That's good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been fun. This was a good deep one. So thank you, Genevieve, again for joining us. For everyone listening, if you want to follow what she's doing on Instagram, it's Singer for Jesus, GenevieveMusic.com. Check her out on her website and just see what she's up to. And if you are an athlete or musician who wants to build a roadmap or is experiencing barriers in their performance, reach out to us, www.bullishdrive.com. I'd love to sit down with you. I do a free initial assessment just to help get us a better idea of everything that's going on. So if you feel like that would benefit you, I'd love to sit down and chat with you. And with that, we have one more episode, the finale of season 3. We're sitting down with Theo John next week and just hearing another incredible testimony. So thank you guys for joining us. This has been the Bullish Drive Podcast. We'll see you next week. And always remember, it starts with you and your destiny is waiting. Peace.